What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of the Free Thinkers Podcast. This is episode number 36. 36 episodes in, the greatest podcast. We have joining us today the great and powerful Ryan Fournier, pioneer of Students for Trump, the largest pro-Trump student organization in the country, possibly the world. Unless there's some like student organization in China that we're not aware of, yeah.
Maybe there's bigger in Russia.
Yeah, just dude. Start. But anyway, so Ryan, why don't you introduce yourself, and then Steve, take it away with the plug.
Yeah, so thanks for having me on, Dylan. It's always a pleasure. I know we've done one before. I don't think Steve was on at the time, though. It was such a long time ago when we did that. Really awesome opportunity here, especially connecting with the young people. I know that, especially you, Steve, the audience that we have collectively together reaches a very substantial, has a very substantial youth output. So it's very important to do shows like these, and I'm very appreciative that you have me on so we can talk more about the youth movement.
Absolutely. So, Steve?
Yeah, so this is the part of the show where Dylan forces me, in order to get paid, to sell some merch. So, we always tell you guys, because it's the truth, that free thinkers are the most oppressed class, because both on the right and the left in today's politics, if you're not playing 100% team sport of the tribe, people think you're the enemy. And as a free thinker, I kind of just find myself like with nowhere to go. So there's no money to be involved in this, and I got to pay the bills, got to produce the content for you guys. We started selling merch, Free Thinkers t-shirts. Everyone sells t-shirts, but we're doing it too because we're going right to you guys. If you guys watch this show, you are free thinkers, and like we tell you guys before, if you want to become a free thinking high elder, at least level 5 and 6, you got to spend a lot of money.
You have to,
and you have to at least $50-$60. So we got a promotion going today. If you guys buy at least 2 t-shirts, immediately you'll become level 6 free thinking high elder. I'll hold up a sign for every episode and shout out our high elders. We already have Chad McMullen's a high elder.
And
what's the other guy's name? Serge.
Yeah, Cirx.
Cirque's a high elder.
Cirx.
If you want to be a high elder, get a shout out. Buy a couple of shirts. Link below in the description. We really appreciate it. We good?
Yeah. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about this student movement you have going, because I know you just teamed up with a Turning Point USA. On this, and let me just fix my mic here for a second. So yeah, you turned up with Turning Point USA. So you've got this. You started Students for Trump when, like 2015?
2015.
Yeah. So you started in 2015. And then you grew it, and it, like, people love being, like, I have followers of mine who send me your posts. Like, I just got shared on, Students for Trump. Like, it's like the biggest, which it's cool. Like, it's awesome. You guys have a huge following. And so you guys just recently joined with Turning Point, I guess, as a way to, like, merge your guys' base, because obviously they've got the young crew. And so, obviously that's cool. You guys can get together and do that. But what motivated you? What do you see? Because, like, honestly, when I look at the young movement, I'm just going to get into it. When I look at the young movement, I don't see like this massive wave of Gen Z people who are going to take over the country in like 50 years. I just see a group of like mostly liberals who are just out of pocket. Like, I really don't see a major difference between millennials and Gen Z, except for the fact that Gen Z just seems to be down with like offensive humor,
Right.
So what do you see about it, Ryan? Because you're kind of in this movement. You're part of this movement. You're really in touch with the kids. Not in a weird way. What do you see? What do you see? What do you see about Gen Z?
Not in a Michael Jackson way.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
But yeah, I'm asking this question too, because like I've been saying this, as someone who runs a media company that's trying to target the young people. I tried to be a conservative leaning media company when we started, and I was always told, I read the studies too, that Gen Z is the most conservative generation since World War II and all the stuff they tell you. And then I started making the content, and at least in my anecdotal evidence, that wasn't really the case. I mean, and also to put a caveat on that is the definition of conservative is constantly changing to where it just basically means libertarian now, in my opinion. But, you look at these kids, I think something that the right is kind of having blinders on is because millennials are such snowflakes and the safe spaces and all that lame stuff that Dave Chappelle talked about in his special, they see these Gen Z kids who are just really like ratchet and doing crazy offensive things, and they're equating that with conservatism. but you could be down to make a joke about like mental illness or retarded people or suicide. That doesn't mean you want low budgets or more military spending or you want more gun rights. So it's like, how are you able to make sure that the young people are actually constitutional conservatives and not just offensive?
And I think, and Dylan, going back to what you said, so we partnered with Turning Point Action, which is the 501c4, the sister organization of Turning Point USA, which is their 501c3. And people ask me all the time, why did you guys partner together? Is it a part of Turning Point USA? It is not a part of Turning USA, totally separate of that. It is a project of Turning Point Action, of which I'm the co-chairman of now. It made sense to partner. Both of us had really good bases of young people behind us. They were really motivated, thrilled, for Donald Trump. And we saw that. It was very evident in 2015. When we started throwing up photos of young people wearing the MAGA hats, sure, that created more young people who wanted to throw up photos there too. But it also gave us very valuable information and data. It helped us go to these students and then also get them out to vote, to volunteer, to do the things that actually are going to get the president reelected or at the time elected. And so that's what we plan to do again here in 2020, except a lot more aggressive than before, and with about $15 to $20 million behind it going through the election.
Wow.
Some of the things we want to do, and this is something really different. We really want to target the Greek community. We really want to go. Yes, the Greek community.
Oh, okay, I see what you're. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, no. The Greek community is going to be a really big one. We're going to have a lot of rallies, tailgates on campuses, a lot of stuff really to just get out there with the students and have a conversation, because that's what they're lacking. I know you said that before, Dylan. I mean, it's the conversation, it's the debate, it's the discussion that is really lacking from these campuses, from these institutions. Some students are having it between themselves, like I experienced at my university, but you run into a lot of professors, you run into a lot of staff, pieces of your curriculum, of which have left or liberal leaning, and you almost feel like you have to participate in it or you're going to be penalized for it. And so these are the discussions we want to have with students. We want to talk to them about, what they're facing on campus. We want to talk to them about how they can get involved, the opportunities. We just want to get them hyped up, give them a bunch of free little goodies with Students for Trump on it. We're going to have a lot of that. Just a lot of stuff to keep people really motivated and involved, get them coming in, and looking at President Trump and hearing the truth behind him, hearing that he's not that bad of a guy compared to what the media has said. So really, this is going to be a big movement to convince people and get people out to vote for Donald J. Trump. But we're planning to get about 1 million plus in voter contacts and voter registration. So that's a big goal, but I think we can accomplish it.
And what you said just then is something that I've been critical of Turning Point before, not in a way to I think they do good, but I've definitely been critical of some aspects. And one aspect of it has been the lack of voter registration or doing pretty much anything outside of hyping up the base and throwing ragers. And so the fact that you just mentioned that, saying, you're actually pushing toward voter registration, trying to get these people, instead of just going up and being like, here's a pin, you're like, okay, here's a pin. Let's get you involved in the party. Let's get you out and voting when the election comes around. Because, if you have a super hyped up base, they have to vote. One thing Democrats are great at, and they've always been great at this, is busing people to the election. During the Obama administration, they were busing, especially minorities, lower income families, out to vote in these places. They had buses picking them up. Republicans have always sucked at that, and that's why we've had trouble voting. Had trouble winning elections, because we don't do that kind of thing. We don't try to.
That activism aspect just isn't there.
Yeah, and I think that's because
activism aspect, you lose the messaging aspect
exactly,
too, which are areas we fail at.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's something I'm glad that there are more organizations doing this. People are like, "Oh, why don't you do it?" I literally don't have an organization, so I do not have the boomer money or the resources to be shipping people out to vote. I could pick up 4 people in my Corolla and we could head over to the voting booth, but that's it. It's I can't.
Hey, it's still effective right there.
But but so I'm glad that that's happening. I think that's good. But I think it's cool. I know Ryan. I know you pretty well. I've known you a while over the years. You're super passionate. You're super interested in this. So it's good to see you kind of moving and taking the next step in with Students for Trump. It's cool.
What does the partnership entail? What did that do for your company to partner with Turning Point?
Well, Students for Trump was never a company or any entity like that. We did,
okay.
Primarily in 2015 and 16 worked as a coalition. And so we were working not with the campaign, not directly associated with them, but we, helped, you don't want to get into the bleeding areas of all that mess, but down at the state level was really a lot of where our people were critical in getting volunteers, getting people out to the rallies to help out, go out, door knock, get, stump the vote for Trump out in Raleigh was a big area for us. Penn State, one of our biggest chapters, actually, Florida State. So we had activity on the campuses. We had activity in the communities. We just didn't have funded activity, which was I think the biggest downside of it all was it was all volunteer from top down to bottom. So to see now that people are going to be, given, fair pay, for the work they do, being reimbursed for travel expenses, holding all these awesome big events that bring people in, bring the Trump family in. That kind of stuff is just a really amazing opportunity, not just for me, but for everybody that gets to see it.
Yeah, that's lit, dude. That's awesome.
Nice.
Yeah. I know Turning Point's like the new thing. Like it's the wave, getting on the Turning Point wave. Everyone's doing it. I'm like literally the only person at this point, I think, who's like not on the wave.
I have no association with Turning Point.
Yeah, well, I mean, the free thinkers. The thing is, like, nobody wants free thinkers.
No one wants to associate with us because, like I said,
yeah,
we aren't. And this is most of my friends are conservative. I was a conservative until like a couple of years ago, and I get it because the way the system is designed today, if you're not in either one of the major two parties, you're just a threat to their existence, and you're basically irrelevant and you don't have a chance.
You're not only a threat, but it's like I'm starting to actually realize, like, in 2016, I'm still pro-Trump. Like, I'm still voting for Trump, pro-Trump, but I'm open to criticizing constructively things he does. But in 2016, like, I remember looking at the Libertarian Party, who they're still a joke, and I stand behind everything I said about them. But I was like, these guys are idiots, like libertarians, like complete waste of time. Like, what are you doing? And they were like, dude, you just hate us because, like, we're not part of the mainstream Republican Democrat system.
No, it's because you're all stupid idiots.
Well, no, well, for them, it is. They're literally stupid idiots.
Yeah,
but, like,
dumb.
for the free thinkers, I understand now, being outside of the mainstream, like, Republican Democrat niche, it's like, you get shit. Like, you get so much crap. Like, I'll post about, like, as a free thinker, like, I feel like this. And people are like, free thinking doesn't even exist. You're just a Republican that's stupid. And I'm like, no, like, literally free thinking means that you aren't held back by bias. Like, you have no bias. You side with
the worst internet.
It's still recording now. Remember last time it kept going, and I don't agree with this, but proving that humans have absolutely no impact on climate change. And most Republicans would be like, oh, I mean, NASA isn't even real. So it's like, I don't even see why the NASA study makes sense. Like, we didn't even go to the moon. So it's like,
when you're playing a team sport and it's like, Tucker Carlson talks about this, and Jordan Peterson. I think Jordan Peterson and Tucker Carlson are both free thinkers. If you watch Tucker Carlson's program, I mean, people will call him a Republican, but it's like almost nothing the guy says is traditional Republican dogma.
No.
I mean, he's talking about wanting to break up the big corporations, like wanting to regulate Amazon. That's not traditional Republican economics. He thinks for himself, but it's
refreshing. He's one of the last great voices on Fox News.
I know.
Fox News is just
always interesting. It's always something new. But what Dylan and I are experiencing, and there's so much pushback of us being free thinkers, is unless you have just major clout, like Tucker Carlson level of clout or Jordan Peterson, like these kinds of people who are so famous and so powerful and so wealthy that people look up to what they have to say just because they want to hear what their perspective is on it, no matter what it is. If you're not at that level, no one gives a shit. It's like, who am I to give this ridiculously absurd opinion on something? It's like, well, you have no clout to back up that people care about what you have to say.
Which is so ridiculous that's how it works.
It's like you your followers or your level of fame is directly correlated to the powerful of the power of your message, which is the same thing that Republicans get wrong about the left. And what I tried to do when I started The Scoop 2.5 years ago was, Republicans always say, Hollywood, celebrities, nobody cares what you think. Someone said this. Nobody cares what you think. Well, that's not true. And I get that maybe nobody should care what they think, but the truth is people obviously do care what they think. And if you keep on just virtue signaling saying nobody cares what you think, and you do nothing to actually combat the message of the left and the media and Hollywood, which is very effective, I'm sure that, Taylor Swift has more influence over policy than I do, because obviously her reach is bigger. I mean, Kanye West, and they
Yeah,
always
dude.
said that when Kanye West came out on the right, all of a sudden now celebrities we care what you think. It's just like,
Well, it's like-
do
it's
we care
like-
about celebrities? Do we not?
And you see how
Well,
quick
you know,
they
prime
changed on
example-
Kanye, right?
Yeah.
The perfect example was the Dave Chappelle. It's like Dave
Yeah.
Chappelle is openly
He's not a
left.
conservative.
No,
He's
he's
probably very liberal.
He's openly
Very left.
liberal. You just watch. By the way, and his stand-up special wasn't even that funny. I've never really thought Dave Chappelle's that funny. Honestly, watching the stand-up special, all I was like, I wasn't really laughing. I was just like, "Thank you for saying that." Like,
This
this
owns
is.
the libs.
It's just nice to, it's nice to hear someone be like,
Right.
Like my favorite part of the whole thing was he was like, "Okay, fine, women, have your abortions, whatever. I don't care.
Yeah.
Have your abortions, but."
we don't have to pay for it. though.
I'm not paying for that shit.
Pay for your
If
kid,
you get
yeah.
to choose to kill that
Yeah.
thing, I'm not
Yeah,
paying
I'm
for it. I
paying
can choose-
for it. Yeah.
which was my favorite part of the whole fucking thing because it's like, it's so funny.
Well,
Like,
he's and that's what conservatives will do this, and there's a lot of reasons why I stopped calling myself a conservative or a Republican and just formally distanced myself. It wasn't because I became any more liberal or left on it. I hate the left. It's that
Yeah.
I noticed that a lot of hypocrisy from the right and the conservatives, and I want Ryan can address this because you work with student organization. A lot of the things that people on the right said about the left, they would quickly switch up if their side was doing it. Now all of a sudden it's okay. I mean, you'll have Trump with like the putting the kids in the cages. Then they'll say, "Oh, it was Obama. Like he was the one who was locking him up." It's like, well, are you against that? Because you should say, I didn't hear any Republicans praising Obama when he was doing it for all those years. They always say he's the worst immigration president ever. And so like it's like neither party really stands for anything. But because I'm from the right, that's why it upsets me so much about what they're doing, because it's like the right always said they stood for principles, they stood for stuff, and now it's just like, oh, the left is evil and nasty, so we're going to be evil and nasty like them and just do the same things they do. And it's like, I can't really justify that, because like, what's the point of it all then? It's like neither side stands for anything anymore. It's just who's in power gets to have control over it. So when you have organizations like Students for Trump, like, are you guys preaching like a certain message or some values, or is it just, this is our guy, we want him to win, and that's really all that matters?
It's the message behind the presidency, America First agenda. It's the things that he's been pushing, and primarily a lot of key points are going to be the ones that have the most impact on students. They want to make sure that after they spent those years in colleges, or the 4 years or however many years they're at university or college, they're going to want to know they're going to have a job waiting for them, or something at the end of that path,
Yep.
And so that's kind of one of the things we're really looking to target is going to be his policies, those ones that really affect the students. And, especially going into 2020, one thing I've noticed is, from 2016, even before 2016 to now, and this is a personal observation separate of my role, politics has just become so disgusting and evolved over time.
Oh.
It's just rapidly.
It's no
within
longer
this
like this-
span, within this short span, though, it's went total, calmness in a way to total shit show, and it was like a short time span as to which that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And you have Barack Obama to blame for it. You have Republicans to blame for it. You can put even blame on the current administration to an extent. There's many variables to blame as to why we are so galvanizing towards each other. Why?
And I think you can blame the technology platforms that facilitate that level of anger.
Well, yeah, you no longer have
Right.
discussions with people in person. Like I could
It's
sit
on the
online, dude.
internet,
When I
yeah.
first started my Instagram for the first like 2 years, I would just roast people in the comments. Like, thank God there was no
Wild
censorship.
West.
Yeah.
Because I'd hop in the
Wild
comments and be like,
West for
idiot.
Donald Trump in a way.
Yep. I
But like we talked about this on a couple of shows ago, and I think, sorry if I'm like clearing my nose, I still have like the remnants of a cold. So, but I think a lot of this has started, and I'm not saying it's Trump bad, but I think it's because Trump causes such a visceral reaction amongst the left. So it's like you've got the left who just despises him and they hate him and they think he's a racist and they would like him dead. And then you've got the right who wants to blow him in a line. And it's like that's obviously going to cause like massive tension. Where it was with Obama, it was like people liked Obama.
Well,
but, like,
the tension is I blame the internet because people say, oh, it's the left hates Trump so much more than anybody else. I'm old enough to remember George Bush's presidency pretty well. It was only 11 years ago. And like the media hated him. They called him a Nazi. He was literally Hitler. The war was the biggest problem of all time. Katrina, George Bush doesn't care about black people. It wasn't any better for Bush. It was, the difference was there wasn't so much internet communication. There wasn't so much social media that not every idiot had a voice. It was just the TV and the newspaper. So
do you remember, let me ask you this, because I know some people will remember this. Do you remember SNL during the Bush years? SNL? Well, even during the
election.
Will
Ferrell always making fun of him all the time.
But I feel like, here's the difference.
It was comedy where they'd attack both sides, though. They'd go at left and they'd go at right. When Queen Latifah did her specials early on, they were phenomenal. They'd attack both sides. And then you start getting social media. You start going, you get Facebook, you get these feeds, you get Instagram with photos, you get Twitter with, I can basically put something on Twitter right now and make a news story. Like, that's how dangerous it is.
I know.
Large platforms.
But it's like when I would watch Saturday Night Live, like back in the day, it was like they would make fun of Bush, but it would be funny. Like, Will Ferrell was actually pretty good at imitating Bush. It was funny. We were all down to fucking criticize him because he was an idiot. Like, we could all admit that he was an idiot in some regards. So it was like some of the stuff.
Here's the thing about Bush is, nobody was down to criticize Bush until President Trump did it. And they're like, you know what, he actually did
well,
stuff.
no, I don't even think
before that,
that.
It was like, oh, he's Republican, we can't criticize the Iraq war because for some reason we can't do that.
I disagree. I disagree 100%. Dude, I think that
but look at all the polls, man. If Republicans supported the Iraq war, they all did.
Well, yeah, but that's just because they supported it. That doesn't mean that they were, like, if people were against the Iraq war, they were against it. That's why Trump, when he came out and said he was against it, that's why there was such a strong, like, reaction to it, because there were a lot of people who were against it. But like anyway, back to what I was saying, like, when people criticize Bush, we'd be like, okay, that's funny. Like, you'd criticize Obama on the left, and leftists would be like, okay, like, that's fair. That's it. But now it's turned around to where they try to criticize Trump. You got Alec Baldwin, who can't even do a Trump imitation. Like, and it's just a mockery. It's not even like they're making fun of him in lighthearted. It's like, I'm Trump and I rape kids and I'm like this and that. And like, it's like, that's not funny. Like,
they've lost their minds.
You're literally just trying to slander him in the public eye. You're not trying to make jokes anymore.
There's no punchline. There's nothing funny. Yeah. It's just roasting him. Like,
yeah, you just roasting him with like a Trump wig and a horrible actor. Like, it's not. There's no. Like,
who was the guy that recently just died? Who made that terrible movie? And Peter Fonda. And
I was thinking Michael Moore. I was like, did he die?
About Barron Trump, and I'm like, just basically, like, he was the one I think said he wanted like Barron to get kidnapped. And then raped or killed or something.
Yeah.
And basically put it out there, didn't it? It was just plain text right there, and that's what I'm talking about. That's what I go back to what I was saying earlier about just how we become so fiery. I mean, it's just, there's no other way to describe it. It's just disgusting way of rhetoric. There's no debate. Everything.
Is there any way out of it with the internet? I mean, does it get any better?
Not really, no. I mean, it's one of those things, you can't take what you have, and once you give something to someone, you can't take it away. The internet's never going to go away unless something really bad happens. Same thing with Obamacare. It's very hard to take it away because you've already given it to people, and they already see what they've got and what, and they want to keep it, and that's just how it is. But with this, it's sort of like the race issue. Racism is only an issue when you start bringing it up and you start calling people racist who aren't racist. When you start having all of these different scenarios which really aggregate this toxic climate that we're in right now. And so there's numerous variables, but it's more of an ebbs and flows type thing. I think it's, it'll calm down. It'll calm down. Then there'll be an event in the future where it'll brings it up again. And that's kind of how it is. And then eventually, usually there's a breaking point. And you don't ever know where that's at. So
I mean, so I think honestly, I like Trump a lot, but I think when Trump leaves office and we just kind of get back to the status quo, I think like
what's the status quo? A radical socialist being president?
No. I think the status quo are just like politicians. Like, I think when we go back to that. Like, if Mitt Romney had won, there would not have been the same reaction. If Mitt Romney had beaten Obama, there would not have been the same reaction. I think, and again, I'm not saying Trump isn't doing a good job. I'm just saying that the left, it's like a reaction versus reaction.
Well, his person, I mean, you could like it or you don't have to like it, but
it's not even his personality. He's mellowed out.
It's uniquely abrasive. It is. It's uniquely abrasive.
I
Even
disagree.
Republicans went crazy when he was like, oh, I like John McCain because he's a war hero. Why is he a war hero? Like that's abrasive personality. No one else has said stuff like that before. He's a New York brash guy. A lot of people. I have people who tell me personally they think he's such a jerk. That's why they don't like him. Like that's the only reason, because they think he's a jerk. It's like,
well, no, but I think.
What do you do about that?
Well, I think even at this point, I think Trump's mellowed out. Like, I've seen him. He's not, like, the same. He was right. He's become more presidential.
He's 4.5 years older than when he ran, so he's probably tired and old
No,
and
I don't
exhausted.
even think it's that. I think it's just, no, because he can turn it on if he's at a rally. I just think he's just not like that. But when I look at, but, like, there's such a reaction. Like, again, the left despises him. Like, we talked about this last episode, I think. I didn't agree with almost anything Obama did, besides, like, deporting more illegals than Trump and spending less money. But, like, I didn't agree with anything Obama did. But at the same time, I liked him as a person. Like, I looked at him as a person, and I never wished harm, like, and I still don't, against him or his family or anybody. And I wouldn't do that with any leftist. Like, it's just insane. And I think most people on the right are also of that nature. It's like, we would never look at Obama and say, you know, oh, I hope his kids, like, have horrible things. Like, I want the best for his family. I want the best for him. I hope global warming doesn't destroy his Martha's Vineyard mansion. That would be horrible. Like, that would just be awful.
Well, that's humanity, and that's the thing.
Exactly, but the left doesn't have that. So when you're hearing that
from the left, they're not willing to have that kind of interaction, especially with Trump. They just want him dead. And there's so many of them who say that every single day. They put these things out on social media like morons, quite frankly. And then they lose their job and they get, trashed by everybody on the right for a week. But I mean, it has consequences. But at the end of the day, I mean, that's, again, going back to what I'm saying, is it's lacking that, that humanity type feel. It's just not there, especially with Obama. I never wish death on the guy, no matter how many times I disagree with him on policy. I never wished their harm on his family, but that's totally different as to what we're doing with dealing with now.
Like, but when you wake up every morning, it happens with me. Like, I criticize Trump, and I still like him again. But if I go out in public and I see somebody like bashing him, I turn into fucking boomer, like red hat wearing fucking, you get off my brain, you fucking, like, dude, it immediately, like, as soon, if I'm in person and somebody's attacking, because their attacks are so, like, vicious. And if you're waking up every single day and all you're seeing on social media when you turn on your phone is like I follow this guy on Facebook. I'm friends with him on Facebook. He's this dude who lives in LA, and he just spam posts fucking the most cringy, like, I could go down his feed right now, like, on the show, but I don't want to show his name. But it's just like, he'll talk about Melania being a whore and, like, Barron Trump being autistic, which, if, regardless if he's on the spectrum or not, like, whatever, that's personal family business. We don't even get into that. But, like, Trump, and he's like, oh, look at this naked picture of Trump, like an artist made. And it's like, dude, that's going to piss off Trump supporters. Like, I don't think you understand. You're not helping your cause by doing that. It's just adding to the toxicity of the community. And that's why, like, I don't even have fun doing politics anymore. Like, I don't have fun. Like, it's not fun for me to fucking sit around. That's why I gave up debating. Like, it's not fun to, like, argue, debate people.
It all goes back to the internet. I mean, Ryan said it, and it's not going to go away. But, let's talk about the Republicans for a second. Republicans are the ones who always go back and say the founders' original intention of the Constitution is, like, that's all that matters. Well, the America that the founders were in when they made the Constitution, the conceptualization of communicating through the internet was not possible, and there's a lot of new technological advances. There's nothing to do with guns, okay? More about speech. There's a lot of new technological advances that are happening so fast that it seems like our American system of republicanism, democracy, limited government, whatever, Constitution, it can no longer really keep up with it. And it's kind of just imploding. I mean, there's not much we can really do at this point. I mean, when democracy is about the people conversing in politics and engaging in town halls, but now you can just be on a computer and I'm going to destroy you and say mean, nasty things you would never ever say in person. You're going to make the country a worse place, and it's happening now. You have people radicalized online. There's an obvious increase in mass shooters because they're radicalized online. They have nothing to lose, so they're so distant. They have no friends. There's online friends. The internet is really, I think, destroying our system very fast, and there's really not much we can do about it.
Do you think we're going to evolve? Like, do you think maybe
we're de-evolving, in my opinion. Maybe
I think so as well.
Primitive.
Yeah.
Because we're becoming more tribalistic again.
We're not only becoming tribalistic, but it's like the reason we evolved before is it would be like, oh, there's a fruit on the top of this tree. I want to get to it. Let me figure out, like, well, I'll
Yeah.
have to
Now we're becoming more lazy.
You think we're going back to like a state of nature or something?
I think we're
Basically, we have-
becoming
I
this
mean,
lazy
there's
sacks
nothing
of
else to
shit.
do.
Like, you don't
We're
need
too
to.
rich. We're too lazy. We don't need to work anymore. I mean, Tim Pool had a tweet like the Scoops co-founder Cameron's been saying this for a long time, and Tim Pool said today, I think a lot of our problems in society are we're becoming too rich. We're human beings could never imagine being as rich as we are now with so much free information, travel across the country for $100 flight. Like we're so rich and so wealthy that we're looking for new problems to find purpose in our life.
Yeah.
And we're doing these crazy, ridiculous things like the transgender stuff or these new racial problems. We're looking for problems because we have no real problems anymore, no medical problems anymore. So it's like now we're going crazy looking for problems, and it's like we don't know what to do with that.
Yeah.
And so I mean, I don't know. That's so macro. I don't know how you solve that, but it's like I don't think it's going to stop because people are looking for more and more new problems that don't really even exist, and there's really no message on the right of how to combat the left's increasingly craziness, because the left is looking for new problems and the right's just like, oh, you're a libtard or you're stupid, and that's not making them stop doing that. It's not solving anything. They're not going to stop doing that. So it's like, what's the right's message for stopping the rise of radical leftism? And there really isn't any.
No,
I don't-
no, there's not. There's, I mean, but then, like because the thing is like, again, it goes back to we're just hoping that in 30 years, Generation Z bucks the trend, and for some reason is the only generation ever that's not
For
socialist.
some
Like,
reason, they don't get influenced by their schools or the media. They
yeah,
just somehow
it's like
survive
everybody
it.
comes out as like fucking these robots at Gen Z skipping out of the school, like not a doctor.
Yeah.
Like no, like they're
That,
gonna.
that's. I was gonna say that's why it's so important to educate these people, these younger generations, on the dangers of socialism, the dangers of communism, and really address. And this all goes back to a survey that I posted a short time ago on my Instagram. It was a comparison done by the Terrence Group, and it was one question said in the form of how a Democrat would ask it, basically saying, "This is the Green New Deal, beautiful, flowery. This is it," and in their version. Then there was a second poll where it asked it in more of a, I guess you'd say, more conservative leaning, but factual on the long-term effects of it. So the first poll comes out with about, I don't remember what it was exactly, but about 46% support. Then when you actually give the facts, you talk about the long-term, problems, which, mass unemployment, defaulting on the deficits in this country, numerous amounts of things. But, to sum it up, when you gave them that information on the long-term effects, it dropped by 17 or 18% the support. So that proves to me, and this was shown time and time again throughout the survey with different sets of questions, but it proves to me that young people aren't stupid. And once you, sometimes you may have to spoon feed them stuff. Sometimes you may have to go find them and put the information and the droplets in their mind. And that's what we want to do on the campuses. But they are open like sponges to receive information. And if we can educate them on the dangers of this stuff, I think we can have a real good impact on the future to not vote in this direction if people are supporting those policies.
Yeah, and I think one thing that conservatives can really work on, and then I want to get into some Kathy Zhu controversy that's been coming up, and this is an interesting conversation to move forward with conservatism, but and I have nothing personally against Kathy, so I'm not bashing her.
I don't like her at all.
Well,
so.
but I just think anyway. But like, so I think conservatives, like, a big thing that they could do is just try to be more cool and cultural and like down with the culture. Like right now, we've talked about this numerous times on the podcast, but you're never going to be able to pick up these people unless you're like down with the culture. Like it's like I compare it to Christians. Like I'm Christian, but when I see the majority of Christians walking around trying to like recruit people, they're like, "Oh, you smoke weed? Oh, never mind. You can't come to our church. This isn't welcome in our church." It's like you'll do all the work and then they'll listen to like fucking Little Pump and you're like, "Oh, I don't really want that in our movement. That's kind of degenerate." Like, no, we have to be welcoming to some things. Like I'm not saying let's go crazy and let the fucking pedophiles in, but there's some things that you can start accepting, like music, movies, because when you start embracing that kind of culture onto the right, then guess what happens? You're going to start seeing, bam, more right-wing celebrities, because now they're
not just a political war, it's a culture war.
Well, yeah, exactly. And politics is downstream from culture, and they'll be down because like right now the left is the only one that's open to art, that's open to music, that's open to this stuff. So it's like that's why everybody in Hollywood, everybody that's making music, everybody that is on the left, Whereas if the right starts saying, no, we're down with it too. Look at us, we're cool. And we're actually cool. We can't just say that.
But they're not.
Like, then
but
you'll
they're
start
not
seeing,
into it. They're not.
No,
into
but we
it.
have to be. That's what I'm saying. Is like we have.
How
to
do you
start
tell
doing
someone
it.
who's like, "Hey, I'm not into that stuff"? You just better be.
Like,
you better be down with it,
dude.
Like they
think
don't
about
like
this.
it, dude. They
Think
don't
about
like
this.
it.
Think about this. Well, we just have to change who's in charge of the right. Like that's what we have to do. Maybe Gen Z can do that. Maybe if we can bring enough Gen
Maybe
Z
the
people.
right should start having more young people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, like not her
Exactly,
policies,
dude.
but actually young faces, not just
Well,
old,
hey, you know what?
old 80-year-old white men, and that's not attractive to young people. It
when
just
the
isn't.
when the meme lords hit the age where they can run for president, maybe we'll see like an uptick in that.
Joey Salads.
Joey
He's running
Salads,
for
but whoever. But like, dude, it's what was I gonna say? No, I had like a great point to get. It was like a free thinking point. What were we talking about? We were talking about.
Congress.
No, not Kathy Zhu. We're moving.
She's the leader of the conservative movement.
No,
She's gonna save the country.
We were talking about like the right or whatever. What was it?
Pop culture being cool, influence.
Right. I can't remember what I was gonna say. It was good though. It was so free thinking, dude. Oh, that pisses me off. I was so fucking free thinking, dude. God, I was so ready to go with that one. But no, there was something.
I have one more
like,
question for Ryan before we move on to Kathy.
Yeah, but they need to get down with the culture. That's. Oh no, I remember what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Who has Trump had to the White House to perform? Obama had like Kendrick Lamar. He's putting out bangers like every 2 years. Beyonce, like all these people. Trump has like. You know, who's that pro-Trump like music? Joy Villa that like nobody listens to. It's like, can we get anybody who just
that's
like
the problem with people on the right is, and with the Republicans in general, is they're only known as being like the Republican singer, or that's the Republican
yeah, dude,
actor.
it's
Like by being Republican, therefore they're valuable. It's like no, the left is they're just really good, talented, and they happen to be Democrat.
Yeah,
it's
and
like
it's
their
like
value isn't being Democrat. That's not why they're popular. But the right's like, oh, they're Republican, now they're popular. Like Joy Villa, she has no value other than being Republican. It's like that's not you can't win that battle.
Well, no, you can't
really
win that battle, and it's like, and the thing is like every single Republican, besides outside of the guy who does like, I can't remember his name. He does that show that they just brought back on Fox. They got kicked
Tim
off.
Allen?
Yeah, Tim Allen. Outside of Tim Allen, like they're all just B-list, dude. It's like besides Kanye, but Kanye isn't even a Republican. He's just like
he's a free thinker.
He's just a free. Yeah, no, he's literally as he tweeted.
He's literally a free thinker.
Dude, have you read? I just wanted to read this really quick. I laughed so hard. I was looking up Kanye's dumbest tweets, and I saw this fucking tweet, dude. I couldn't stop laughing. He goes. Sometimes I push the door close button on people running towards the elevator. I just need my own elevator sometimes. My sanctuary.
I relate to that so much. I always do that.
He's like, and then he goes, have you ever
kids.
thought you were in love with someone, but then realized you were just staring in a mirror for 20 minutes? And then he goes, super inspired by my visit to IKEA today. Really amazing company. My mind is racing with possibilities. And then he's like, man, ninjas are kind of cool. I just don't know any personally. Like, it's like, how the fuck do you just
He's
like,
a free thinker, dude. He's a free thinker. That's why.
Exactly.
That's
But
called
yes,
being addicted to opioids.
Yeah.
Your mind goes crazy.
That's what happens. That's what happens when you're fucking off the mids.
My question for Ryan. So, you run a student organization. So, it seems like almost every major policy issue in this country, other than immigration, the left goes on offense for. President Trump is the first person on the right to go on offense. No, we're going to shut down the border. We're going to build a wall. We're going to end DACA. I mean, he hasn't done most of those things, but he's trying. I'll give him credit. But most policies are the left. Like, we're going to ban guns. We're going to give free college. We're going to have free healthcare. The right's just like, no, you're not. And it's always like them just stopping the left from doing stuff. Only immigration, the right is on the offense, and the economy with the tax cuts. But, so the college thing, you're a student organization. The left is coming out with these big proposals for free college or forgiving student debt. As someone who went to college and now runs my own company, and I think college is personally very useless for me, and I think it's a scam. I do think that the American culture in general is being brainwashed. Think you have to go to college, and it's a giant racket. What is your perspective on what the right needs to do to go after students and have some sort of message of saying, hey, we understand where you're coming from? Like this message of, oh, sorry, those are your loans. We don't give a fuck. And then the left's just like, no, we're going to pay for them. Like, okay, we're going to vote Democrat then.
Yeah, who are you going to vote for when the
right
left
needs
is
some
doing
strategy to like be empathetic or something of like, hey, we want to help you. We understand what you're going through. You were sold this lie that you go to college and all of a sudden you get a rich job, and it's not true. It's a scam for the banks. So like, what do you do as someone involved with students to like help them understand that the right does care about students and that we want to help them out and be successful?
One of the things that I commonly hear is that question, but that it's always at it in the sense that what are Republicans doing for young people, right? And so at the end of the day, when you look at this, especially with what the left has already said that they want to do, which essentially they want to say eliminate all student loan debt. Well, that's not possible. You're not going to be able to do that. We all know at the end of the day, there's no such thing as eliminating student loan debt. It's only transferring it from a student to the American taxpayer.
Yeah.
That's what you get at the end of the day with that.
Yeah.
When you inform a student about that down the road, they're probably going to have to pay. They're going to pay that anyway when they start paying taxes. Down the road, okay, let me break this down to let me just go back to a different level. Right now, the college campus is so politicized, the whole arguments and the debates going on, the stuff you hear in the news all the time about what you see on college campuses, right? Students getting penalized for being a Trump supporter, what have you, right? Well, let's take this back, 15, 20 years. You really didn't hear about this stuff. And I've looked it up before. This really wasn't a thing, right? People just went to class, other things happen, whatever, but it wasn't as bad as it is now.
No.
So looking at this whole stuff, everything going on the college campus, there's really nothing to look at, especially as an indicator as to, why this stuff has changed. There's so many variables, like we were talking about earlier. My thing and my argument that I make with students a lot at the baseline is that the policies here are going to have this long-term overstanding effect on them. Like I said, they're going to be paying in taxes. They're going to have, what have you. I'm missing the point that I was going for initially. This is why I shouldn't have put that long with
It's you're having a free thinking blank, dude.
That's free thinking.
No, I'm like thinking
You're in the middle of
blank.
free thinking. That's what you're feeling right now, dude.
Yeah.
No, it's like, no, I just had this, because it really is an issue of such of a broad span. Getting, how it's changed so much, and even the messaging, because even Republicans aren't that great at messaging still. But when I look at what our groups are doing, separate of the official GOP and the campaign, we're going down into these grassroots and having these, talking to these students, talking with professors, with staff at universities, getting these, different sides of the story on stuff, and just really understanding, understanding what young people want, what they're looking for.
Just talk to them in general and just figure out what the hell's going on. Yeah.
And especially with the left. I mean, you don't have that interaction. It's just the toxicity. But my thing is, and especially, referring back to your question, it really is about calling out what is going on, informing people, because they're getting the headlines, they're getting the general, they're getting these misinformative pieces, but they're not getting, what is actually happening or what is thereof going to happen in the future. Especially with, what are you laughing at, dude? You've been distracting me the whole time.
He's looking at the chat.
We're looking at the chat. There's a bunch of fucking just incels in the chat, so we're just going on with the fucking...
Why do you insult the audience?
No, I love you guys. You guys are great. The chat's like the best part of the podcast, dude. It's like...
Oh my God. No, I don't know. It's like, for me, especially with young people, it's always been, especially with the Trump administration, the economy, the low unemployment, looking what they just did for, disabled veterans, paying their student debt, allowing them to, afford themselves an educational opportunity that they might not have otherwise had. These are
that got no attention. Literally, I didn't know about that story till like a couple of days ago, and it's like, I don't
because it got sent to me as an email from the RNC. Right. It didn't even pop up anywhere.
So it's like, people love to pass the blame on other people. Particularly, we're living in 2019, so Trump's president. Let's talk about Trump as the example. Because I've been hypercritical of Trump. I voted for him. I got a MAGA hat the first day he came down the escalator and everything. But I'm just very upset that not as much got done as I wanted it to happen. I mean, most Trump supporters are. I mean, the promises were so big. He won the Senate and the House. It was like, oh my God, we're going to have 2 years of getting everything done.
Yeah.
And not too much got done. And it's like, you can blame whoever you want. But when push comes to shove, if nothing changes, then why does it matter who is to blame? It doesn't change.
Yeah.
So there's so many powers that be. It's the media is liberal, the schools are so liberal, Hollywood's liberal, social media is liberal, internet companies, Apple's liberal, everything is hyper liberal and hates everything conservatives stand for, because nobody in the conservative movement had the foresight, I guess, like the left did, to take over institutions, not just the government. The right always focuses on the government, and the left's like, we're going to take over institutions. We're going to take over school, HR departments, PR departments, marketing departments,
they were
everything.
smart. They targeted certain
They were
areas.
smart. They took over the whole culture, and it's almost at a point where it's like, you can try all you want, and Trump can do stuff like gives free student to disabled vets, but if no one even hears about it, then it doesn't even matter to him, and it doesn't help him out because there's no media to cover it. So it's kind of like
that's
what
the
he
whole
does.
problem,
Dude, I
That's the
think,
whole problem.
So what do you do about it?
It's the lack of the media attention, because the media is more left leaning, like we were
Right.
talking about. Hollywood, music, all these, they're not talking about, you know, the GDP exceeding 3% growth over the last three.
And they're not going to
3 or 4
talk about it.
quarters.
They're
They're not
gonna
talking about the
talk about it.
4.6 million jobs created since he's been in office.
Because they don't want. They
But
don't want to give
the
him any
majority of those
benefit.
jobs are temporary gig jobs, so it's like those jobs are going to be gone. Like they're not even like.
But
I mean,
But
even
that-
if it's temporary, though, it's still a job. I mean,
No, I
sure.
agree,
you
yeah.
know,
And I'm very excited that Trump is doing that. But the point is, particularly with the media and the social media with censorship, if no one's getting that message out or no one cares, I mean, there's not much you can really do. And there's really no strategy I've seen on the right to go after and change the culture, take over Hollywood, take over the marketing departments, take over the schools. They don't even talk about these things, which are way more important than politics. Because if you don't have any of those things,
Yeah.
and you even win an office, and everything you pass no one even knows about, it's all irrelevant.
Exactly,
So
yeah.
I love what you're doing with Students for Trump, because you're trying to get people involved to go vote and understand what Trump is doing. But that's purely just on a governmental level. And you're only one man. You only can do so much, obviously. But there needs to be people like Ryan Fournier who are going after these sorts of things with private institutions.
Well, I
trying
think
to
the
change
left
culture with
just
schools.
spent like 20 years like
Oh, it's like 50 years, dude.
getting
It's
into
like
these
since
they've
60.
just spent time like taking over education, getting in the HR department, like you were saying, and now they have a stronghold, and it's like totally blindsiding us, because what are we supposed to do to combat the fucking education system? You know, it's like you've got the entire education system indoctrinating kids, and then you get out and it's like, you know, there's really no alternative to that. By the way, I just want to say, I think that Deploribus in the chat solved all of society's problems. She said, or he, I think it's a she, said, have you noticed how crazy people have gotten since they legalized pot? So all of the craziness has come from pot. I think that's
the answer.
The conclusion.
Especially
That's,
for the legalization.
that's another thing that I wanted to talk about personally. I've never really kind of divulged like my job and
Never
what I
really
do.
kinda.
Well,
I've never really
I've-
kinda did.
I've never really, you know, had the opportunity to really talk about this, but we are, you know, especially with what are you laughing at?
You're just like, I've never really kinda.
Now I'm just lost what I was trying to make.
Is that about pot or something?
Oh, yes. No, okay. So it's really all of these things. You know, I've noticed it with Republicans. I noticed it with Democrats. It seems like, I guess, Americans in general, for the sake of this conversation, love to blame one thing for an issue. It's Democrats will blame the gun. The video game argument I've had enough of. If you are listening to this video
I am a gamer, and I've had enough of this.
If you believe that video games are the sole issue, you are completely wrong.
President Trump, are you listening to that? All right.
I am saying that's separate of my role, separate everything else. I played video games as a child. I have never once in my life wanted to commit a mass shooting. And so, same thing with the whole pot weed argument. You know, there are negatives to it. There are positives to it. I personally could care less. I don't care. Tax it. You know, it's why do Republicans have to be stuck in the same boat of ideology where, you know, they all think they have to think the same. Democrats all think they got to think the same. I love the free thinkers part. I love that notion. I support it 100%. Don't get stuck in a certain way of thinking. we are the big tent party.
That might be the biggest endorsement that Freethinkers ever got was from Ryan Fournier on the show. Like,
dude,
that means a lot.
That's a fucking.
Most people fucking hate it. They just can't stand that we're Freethinkers. They get so angry about it. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, you know what I think happened? I think Ryan is just becoming a freethinker right before our eyes.
True.
Like, I think Ryan's gonna. I think what's gonna happen is because I did want to talk to him about what's gonna happen after Trump, but I think I already know. I think it's gonna go from students for Trump to students for freethinkers. I think that's the next step after, you know.
Man, I don't know if I'm going to be starting another student group. I'll be honest with you. I'm about tired of millennial politics, and I'll call it that. I am moving on to Los Angeles soon to start up a news company, actually called Crave News. You may have heard a little bit about it.
I did.
It's a competition for the scoop, huh? Maybe I don't like you so much anymore.
Hey, we can be friendly. We can be friendly.
Yeah. We can work with each other, benefit each other.
The Scoop was the pioneer. So when Ryan gets all the boomer money and just outspends the Scoop tenfold, you just remember the Scoop was the pioneer of it all.
I just remember you guys, though, the Scoop. I remember especially you, Dylan, too, with, just when you guys had your accounts and you first started. Yeah. And now you guys have huge followings and everything's kind of different now. And it puts it into perspective. It's, you and I, Dylan, we were here since like the beginning.
Yeah, I remember you from way back.
A long time ago. And so to think now, it's you got 2020 to go through. All of the the impact that you guys are going to have other influencers.
I've never gone through an election. We started the Scoop in February 2017, just after the inauguration. So I've never experienced the whole election cycle of being a political influencer.
Oh, dude, it's so different now. No, before it was so much better. Really? Like the 2016 election was great. This one sucks. Like because it's just like. You want to talk about tribalism. Like in 2016, it was like everybody had their guy. Some people were Rand, some people were Cruz, some people were Trump. And then it was just kind of like people supported Trump after that, but it wasn't like insane. Now it's insane. Like this is a cult, dude. Like there's no other way to describe it. And Ryan, you're not like that. Like I know you're not like that. Like you're definitely a open-minded, blossoming free thinker. But like some people are it's just like
blossoming free thinker.
I'm changing his name in the thing to Blossoming Freethinker Ryan, dude. But like that's what that's the next shirt, dude. Blossoming Freethinker.
Yes, Blossoming Freethinker.
So if you're not quite there and you don't want to get the Freethinker shirt, you can get Blossoming Freethinker. That'll be out soon. But yeah, no, I think like it's just a cult and it's insane. But I wanna talk about one more question for you and then let's get into Kathy Zoo because I do want to get to this before we end the show here. So what do you think, just, in your personal perspective, Ryan, what do you think is going to happen after Trump? Like, what do you think is going to happen to these organizations, these influencers who have just built their entire careers? Like, you've got the news organization, you're getting ahead of the curve. But all of these people who have just built their entire careers off of Trump, like, what are they going to do? Like, what do you think is going to happen to the political community? Like, is it going to go back to how it was before? Do you think people are just going to scramble for their next candidate to get behind, or like what do you like? I'm honestly kind of excited for that. Yeah, it's
students for Rand Paul, dude. That's the next thing.
But you can't because it has to be
I would say the Trump effect is real and it's strong, and the Republican Party, whether they like it or not, needed something like this to happen. I don't know the future. I'm not a fortune teller, but I will say that the GOP.
Freethinkers are.
If
you're not a
they
fortune
hadn't
damn
had,
it, dude,
if they hadn't
totally lied to me when he said he was going to have you on the show. I said he needed a fortune teller, and he's like, I'm here.
Well, no. Okay, but the GOP has really failed, especially in the past, and even somewhat to this day, with messaging minority voters.
Yeah.
Whether they like it or not, the minority community is a very big community, and it's one that has to be tapped into because they have needs as well. And there's so many of them that are Republican. Some of them won't say they are. Many of them won't say they are. But they are Republican. They go on voting day and they vote Republican. That's all that matters. And we need to be looking out for those people as well. And if the party doesn't start doing more to help these communities, to pay more attention to these communities and their needs, they're going to fail to be existent. I said it before Trump. I said about 25, 30 years, they'd fail to be existent on a national level in 25 or 30 years hadn't they did something. And this something was Trump. Whether we like it or not, whether people who are Republican or not, he is the individual that I think is going to bring growth and change, as he already has, but even for the future growth and change. If he wins another 4 years, I think it's solidified. I think it's solid. But there is going to be, especially when he leaves office, it's inevitable, there will be some of that, disruption in a way. People are going to figure out where they're going, but I think that they need to go, continue in this upward direction. We need to be more of an open party. We need to continue to be on the track of being the Big Ten party, and I think we need to start embracing more ideals. I know we said that earlier on here. Embracing more ideals, breaking into the culture. It's not an overnight thing. It's not something, that's necessarily going to happen while we're alive, but the progress should start going in that direction for sure for the GOP.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. I think these people are gonna be lost.
I think they'll be okay. I mean, the smart ones will be okay because the smart ones capitalized on Trump, and they see something else. They see the trends. I mean, Ryan's doing it, got his own company. I mean, whatever. We'll all adapt if you're smart enough.
Well,
you see what else you
the
hop
thing
on
is,
it.
the smart ones are usually the big ones, and the big ones just all the other ones are inspired by the big ones. So it's like whatever the big ones do, the small ones are gonna latch on. But I'm excited for another. Like, my favorite part of the whole thing was Politigram when it was like primary election Politigram. Because that was so much fun. That was so much fun to just watch the debates and everyone just fucking get pissed at each other afterwards. It was like, fuck. And we didn't even have stories.
I love the Snapchat things where they would zoom in on Hillary's face with the Snapchat little
dude. Well, and the best part was, like, back in those days, like 2015, we didn't have like stories or anything on Instagram. So you had to like post on your page after the debate and be like, poll, and then you'd have like a picture with all the candidates on it, and you'd have them numbered, and you'd be like, put your number down below of who you thought won. And so then people would have to number it, so you'd have to go down and fucking
Stone Age.
You'd have to go down and fucking count all this shit. So I'd count it up.
You have a horse and buggy too.
Oh, dude, and then I'd go and get my stone car, and I'd ride down to the fucking. No, dude, it was insane. Like, that Instagram was a completely different place back then.
You
but let's
didn't get banned for anything though, because the moderation team was probably the original founders. Or, their staff of probably 10 people. They probably didn't even look at
What's funny, too, the whole banning and moderation thing is, obviously the banning the censorship is at an all-time high now, and it hasn't made us be any less divided. It hasn't accomplished anything. It's not like them censoring is making people more, like each other anymore. It's made it worse. People get pissed off about it. They feel like they're being attacked. Back when there was no censorship, it is what it is.
Yeah.
People weren't any more divided than they are now. It's like it hasn't accomplished anything good. It really hasn't.
Yeah. So let's get into Kathy Zhu as we wrap the show here. So she posts on Instagram.
Dylan's favorite person.
She's not my favorite. Why do we do this, dude? Like,
you are. I don't know if you're trying to have a crush on her or something, but you're less down to criticize her than Laura Loomer.
Because I don't think Kathy Zhu is annoying as shit. Like, Laura Loomer just annoys me. Okay, well, maybe if I knew her better, but I haven't really seen her. Laura Loomer just annoys me. I don't hate Laura Loomer. I just think she annoys me and her methods are ineffective. But Kathy Zhu is just, honestly, all Kathy Zhu is just a thought who's not very threatening. Like, there are some thoughts who I think are threatening and but nobody listens to Kathy Zhu.
No thoughts threaten me at all. I don't know why you guys
I don't. I mean,
thoughts.
threatening is in they're spouting their dumb ideas, and people are like, "Oh my god!" But Kathy Zhu, nobody listens to Kathy Zhu. So it's what's the point of me criticizing her? But, no one's like, "Oh, well, so I looked at Kathy Zhu's page, and I really valued this point she made."
Let's see what she has to say about the situation.
Yeah. So anyway, she posts a picture, typical of conservatives in 2019. At some gay pride fest. Okay, it's like Michigan Pride. And it's just I commented underneath. People were bashing her. And I commented underneath and she was, this was the post afterwards. So she loses a ton of followers for this because it's surprise, conservatives aren't down for homosexuality. Thought we've known this. So she posts this thing. She's shocked. She's like, what? Because she's not actually a conservative. So it's she's trying so hard to fit the mold. And then she's so now she's like, wait, I'm not supposed to be pro-gay? What am I supposed to do? So she's going after everybody. Now, granted, she has stood her ground, which I do give her props for that.
Did you see her tweet of all things she said that conservatives don't have to be?
No, I saw that, but I want to get to that in a second.
Yeah,
but I want to. So she tags this. She's like, I posted a picture of me at a gay pride event, or whatever. And of course, turns off comments, so I can't fucking see why I roasted her. But I commented underneath. I was like, of course, conservatives are mad. Or I was like, she's like, conservatives are pro-gay now, whatever. And I was like, of course, because being anti-gay gay marriage. You don't have to be anti-gay. You can be anti-gay marriage. Would require
Yeah.
conserving. Conservatives
Right.
are not. Conservatives are down for a lot. They're not down to conserve. So I was like, conservatives are not down to conserve anymore. It's 2019. We're progressives.
Yeah.
I'm not, but the rest of conservatives are. They're progressives. You know, liberals are more conservative. And so like and I was like, of course, like that. And then she comes out with this thing and she goes, conservatives don't have to be Christian. They don't have to be pro-life. They don't have to hate weed. They don't have to be straight, and they don't have to be traditional. What the fuck are you?
I
you
love
just
the last
described
one, all of
liberals,
those or
dude.
whatever, but the last one she goes, conservatives don't have to be traditional, when literally the definition of the dictionary definition of conservative is conserving tradition of a society. That's literally all it
It's
is.
a set of it's a set of ideals and principles that you stand by, you know, and over time those don't really change at all,
No.
as society does and all these other things do.
Right.
They're not supposed to really change. That's why they're principles.
Well, so you're
and,
just
you
as
know,
progressive because you're changing. It's like
Yeah,
inherently
it's-
the definition. They don't have to be traditional. It's like, you are so dumb. And then I was like, you know what? And it's fine. You don't have to be. I'm not conservative. But I'm saying what you're saying is no. That's not conservative. That is called libertarianism. There's already a word for it. You're a libertarian thought. Okay, you can call yourself that. Don't say you're a conservative. Say, hi, I'm Kelly. I'm a libertarian thought. I'm not a conservative. It's so simple.
but it's like, dude,
nothing,
I mean,
nothing
read
wrong
down
with that.
this.
Nothing wrong with thought.
So it's
Nothing wrong with
like-
being libertarian. But
Conservatives don't have to be Christian. Okay, that's like, I guess, whatever. Pro-life, like that's a fundamental building block of conservative policies. They don't have to hate weed, whatever. I guess they don't have to hate weed. They don't have to be straight. I guess that like you don't have to be straight, but it's like
that's different than going to a gay pride
that's
parade.
different than going to a
She's
gay
trying
pride
to be a
parade.
liberal and change the definition of things.
Yeah, well, and that's what conservative. Well, and that's something that I've noticed a lot of. And she just went crazy with like posting her own tweets, which I just think is hilarious. But it's like I just don't understand why conservatives like they change what it means to be a conservative. Like gay marriage got legalized. They thought it was unpopular to be anti-gay marriage now, and they just dropped the slippery slope argument, which is objectively happening before our eyes with the pedophilia movement now, and then the transgender movement.
And
Yeah,
the drag
and they're
queen story
like,
on
yeah,
her.
and they're like, oh well, yeah, I mean, you know, you could be conservative and support gays. It's like, dude, 8 years ago you were completely opposite. I'm against public sexualization in general. Like we've talked about this in the show.
we need to ban all kissing.
I want to ban
Guys, girls,
any
anything.
sort of
Dogs.
sexual behavior in public in general. You
We
know,
need
you-
to ban dogs having sex with each other.
as a
Just
free
all of
thinker,
it.
we would solve the Me Too crisis. If you just threw people in jail for making sexual advances, like in public, even if you're dating somebody, let's just throw them in jail. Like if I hold my girl's hand on the street, throw me in jail right now.
I agree. It works in Saudi Arabia.
It works in
Iran.
Saudi Arabia, you know, and I think
They're,
that's just
they're doing fine. They're rich as hell.
Yeah.
Like,
well, dude, the men are out there
we
being hella
sell them hella
productive.
guns, so obviously we don't care that much that they're doing it.
we're fucking cashing in with them, dude. I didn't even matter. But like,
I know.
no, dude, I think it's so funny.
Well, here's the
'cause-
thing: it's like people need to stop. You know, it's just about definition and words. Just because something isn't conservative or is conservative doesn't mean it's right or wrong for society.
Yeah.
But there's nothing conservative about being pro-gay. By definition, you are conserving traditional marriage.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that it's wrong to be gay. Doesn't mean I don't support it, but it's not conservative. It's like we're
No,
trying to stay
that's-
conservative.
You don't
It's
have
like,
to.
it's-
You don't have to. There's a difference between supporting something and then just passively, you know, knowing it's happening and
not
just
caring.
letting it
Yeah.
happen, not
Yeah,
caring.
right.
You know, and that's what I think she may have confused there.
Yeah.
I personally, for me as a conservative and my views, I don't personally care, you know, what you do for the most part with your life. I don't. You know, there's areas where, you know, I will protest certain things, and I have. But then there's many areas where I just, you know, as long as it doesn't affect me, as long as you don't force it upon me, I don't care at the end of the day that you're doing it.
That's
But
just
it's-
more libertarian by definition.
That's
than
libertarian,
right.
yeah. But like, what is like? I think what confused Kathy
Yeah.
too was like, she was like, oh wait a minute, like, because I don't
Well,
again.
it's like, then what is conservative? If you have no principles, then really what's the point of any of this? I don't have any principles, but I'm not conservative. I'm a free thinker, so that's different. Just be a free. If you don't have principles, then just be a free thinker. But don't say you don't have principles, then be a conservative, because you're not a conservative. You're a free thinker then, which is fine. I'm one too. But this idea that we need to like, oh, this is conservative and that's actually conservative, and like it's like, you know, it's
At the
conservative.
end of the
to have-
day, people just start when people have this discussion that we're having right now. A lot of people at the end of the day come out and say, "You know what? I'm independent. I'm none of this.
Right.
You know, I'll vote the way based on the issue-based voting.
And that's how I think everyone should be.
Yeah, I don't have an issue. I mean, it works fine in many countries, but our system just wouldn't work
Right.
out. So, I mean, it's one of those things where we're going to have the two parties, whether one or the other replace, or they both fall apart. And at that point, if they both fall apart, I think it'd be like if Google fell apart. So I don't want to see that happen. I think people not know what to do here. If they
I
lost
want to
that,
see it crumble.
you know.
I don't.
I want to watch the world burn.
It's.
I've been
there's-
playing too many
the
violent
concept-
video games.
There's so many things that would, if you got the concept, you know, I mean, it's, you would have to change all of that to adapt to a new system, and I don't think it'll happen.
It's not
Let's
worth
just-
it. I mean, it's not worth it.
There's no way you can
It's
adapt.
more.
this to
It's
people
more
to
difficult.
drive it.
Jordan Peterson talks about this. He's like, everyone's like, oh, we just need to break the system and burn the system down. And he says, do you know how difficult and how many things have to go right for a system to work? And like how improbable it was to get where we are now? And you think you can just break it down and build up a new one overnight? Like, that's literally impossible. It's not going to happen. It's going to be chaos and civil war.
Cameron in the chat, Bella Delphine is more conservative than Kathy Zhu. Changed my mind. It's true, dude. Bella Delphine is honestly probably one of the fucking founding fathers of the modern conservative movement. Like, I think we just have to put her in that category.
Well, she's against censorship.
Yeah, she's against censorship.
Are conservatives against censorship, or no, we're not against that either, Kathy Zhu? I don't know. What are we against?
Ryan, let me ask you this, though, okay? Where do you stand on censorship? Are you in favor of the government getting involved, or you think these free market companies should just kind of work themselves out? I mean, listen. Let me just make this point really quick, Ryan, because as somebody, you obviously run like a large company that's based almost entirely on social media, like most of us here. So it's like, like none of us fucking, the Scoop isn't selling newspapers. I'm not posting memes on fucking totem poles. So it's like, it's like all on social media, but it's like, I don't even know why I said almost entirely. I mean, maybe you do some stuff outside of social media, but
I have a website, but it's barely
and you promote it on social media. So it's like a giveaway. But like, so if you were to move, like, let's say you got banned tomorrow and you're like, okay, Students for Trump now up on Parler. Like, it's just like nothing. Like, I just think these free market. Now, while I do like Parler and I think the app is like cool, I just don't think the free market approach to solving the problems is effective enough at this point. I think the government needs to step in. I just made this free thinking connection, and this is huge. I think the government needs to step in, deal with the problem until the free market is able to catch up with the issue. And that's so fucking free thinking, because if you think about it, that works in every...
Well, actually, free thinkers understand this, that whenever the government gets involved in a problem, it never leaves.
I
so it's not gonna
disagree.
get away.
I disagree.
When did they ever leave?
Space travel. Space travel.
When-
They're slowly getting their way out of space travel. It's being taken over by Elon Musk. So I think space travel, the government started it. They pioneered going to the moon, traveling in space.
They never stopped the FCC. They never stopped the FCC. All these things made by Roosevelt in the 30s still all exist.
No, but
Like,
what
every
I'm saying is
program
I
related.
do honestly believe that you could, because nobody wants the government to control online speech. But so what would happen is you could pass policy. You could pass policy. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But you can have policy that has an expiration date on it. You can
It's
say
not the government controlling. It's the government saying they have to allow. It's the government allowing free speech. Not, right? It's the government guaranteeing free speech is what you need.
Yeah.
Not them censoring anything. It's the complete opposite.
Yeah.
It's the government passing a law. You cannot censor. How is it the government getting involved? It's the government saying you can't do anything about it.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
good for the people. I don't know what's the
I
problem.
think it's good, but I think that if you give the government that power to start controlling the social media companies, because in a way they are controlling them. It's like if they censor stuff, the government can now get in and say that's bad. So it's like if I go on, which I would never do, by the way, Instagram or YouTube, but if I go on there and I post like straight fucking porn, and then Instagram bans me, and then like the government gets involved and they're like, you can't do that, that's censorship. Like I think they're all things that we agree shouldn't be on social media. It's just
porn is on Twitter, actually, a lot of it, and there's nothing they can do about it. There's a lot of porn on Twitter, actually. I've seen it all the time.
Well, they could do something about it. The problem is they're just going after the wrong things. They're going after, which I think we should ban porn in general, but that's a different discussion. But they're going after freaking, like, Alex Jones, when it's like, no, you should be going after the actual bad stuff.
They're going after him, and it's not illegal to do so. So this is where I always say now the Republican Party is just the Libertarian Party, because it's all about defending corporations' rights and no one cares about the people. Yeah. So they say, oh, we don't want the government involving in the corporations. Well, how does that affect your life at all? They're already censoring us. They're already kicking us off. How could we be worse off if the government got involved? What could be any worse? what could be any worse than the censorship of the companies already who are plotting to not let Trump win, who they have the people from Google coming out and saying we alter search engine results to be fraudulent. They're already doing this without the government involved. How could it be any worse? It can't be any worse.
Well, so Ryan, what do you think?
I was at the White House social media summit that they had. I think it was like a month ago.
Yeah.
And about for like 2 months now. And I had the opportunity to ask President Trump a question. I asked him, currently with all of what has been done, pushing in the direction of, eliminating this bias, eliminating this censorship, even at the, even starting at the micro level, that we sort of have in a way. I asked him, do you see these companies issuing self-correcting fixes? And he just straight up looked at me and said, no.
Obviously. Yeah.
But he's looking into it, and that's all that matters.
I mean, my thing is, a good thing came out of that was a tech committee that was created in the Senate with Josh Hawley and Marsha Blackburn behind it, and it's going
boomers,
to,
dude. It's like,
Josh Hawley's not a boomer.
Young guy. He's not a boomer.
Wait, who?
He's base. Josh Hawley.
Oh, I didn't know who Josh Hawley is.
He's base. He's super cool.
Okay. Well, as long as it's not Marsha Blackburn.
He's the guy to lead it. He's running it. He's the guy to lead it. But my thing is when these companies start to have a very, you can look at it both. You can look at it in many different ways, I guess. We'll just say for the case of this, when they have such an overreaching arm on democracy, when companies start to have such an effect adversely, good or bad, whatever the case may be, especially in the political spectrum, that brings up a lot of brings question to me, because that tells me that these guys and what they've done, especially with Google, we've seen Project Veritas leak the fact that they were changing search results, changing the way views came in. If you had, with YouTube, they would form of shadow banning in a way that they had going on with YouTube. Then, of course, they have now with the ad stuff. You're seeing all this stuff. It's getting exposed. And the fact that the companies have so much power in that realm, I mean, they are a private company, and I support their right, being a private company, but at the end of the day, when you look at the political area of it, and maybe that's where you limit it, there needs to be some sort of oversight there. There needs to be something, especially when there is so much of an effect they can have. Really, I mean, that just as simple as can be. You need to start looking at ways in which that can be regulated temporarily, or But for me, it would be the most. It's kind of nonsensical to say, but probably the most pulled back type of regulation, I think. I just don't see. I don't want the government going into a company and telling a company how to operate. What's going to possibly lose them profits or whatnot. I don't want anything like that to happen. But I do want there to be more of a discussion on this, and I do want there to be work done by this committee to see what exactly what's the solution. We have.
I always say that
I think we need more of it.
We already have the Civil Rights Act. We already have precedent that the federal government tells private companies what they can and cannot do. This isn't some groundbreaking thing. We have regulations in this country. We have laws. The Civil Rights Act says you can't deny someone based off their race, national origin, whatever. You can't discriminate hiring people based on race. That's private regulations on private companies. What if you said to these companies, hey, you cannot discriminate speech based on political outcomes, and you have to allow them to say it? I mean, it's a civil right to use these platforms. Now, just make it part of the Civil Rights Act. They already have Ted Cruz brought this up, that they had the Telecommunications Act of 1996 that all these companies take advantage of, that says if you want immunity from getting libel charges against you, that you're a platform, you cannot censor. Well, they've openly broken that, and the government, the FCC, hasn't done anything to say you've broken that law, we're going to fine you. Like, they're breaking the rule that says you cannot censor if you're going to be a platform, because now you're a publisher. Like,
that's
this is already
that's the FCC for you. I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah.
I mean,
so
that's
this is already the law. We already have the laws that we're not enforcing. So it's like, this isn't that hard to do, in my opinion. FCC run by a Republican, Ajit Pai. Do something about it. Like, they're breaking the Telecommunications Act of 1996, but they just don't do anything. It's like, what is it? Republicans don't fight for their own people. I don't understand, but they don't. They fight for corporations. I mean, any more proof that Republicans care more about corporations than their own voting base is they won't go after social media companies who attack their voting base with already existing laws. That's why I don't like Republicans so much. The party is that I'm really convinced that they're just the party of big business, because when you put big business over the rights of your own people, it's like, what are you doing?
Well, I think there needs to be a perfect mix there with that.
I
agree. Think that business, I do respect the Republican Party for doing this. They've started to get a lot more into small businesses. They've started doing a lot more with promoting small businesses. Trump did when he came in office. And that's phenomenal. That creates jobs. That creates economic empowerment. That creates somebody who's going to come home and happy at the end of the day that they just created and contributed to a society, and they were rewarded for that. They were paid for that. That is what America's about. And so for me, especially with the argument of the companies, I want to be opposed to what you just said. Did you say someone proposed that? I hadn't heard of that.
Ted Cruz has been talking about it on the Senate floor. He had some meetings saying, like, this is the law that says if you are going to be censoring content, you are now a publisher and not a platform. And that's the agreement
they need to have their legal immunity stripped anyway. That's long overdue.
Yeah,
they should be held accountable. The fact is they just can't be sued. And I can understand to an extent where that comes in, but I think that if we're going to allow them to have that immunity to an extent, which, yes, they probably do need it, there definitely needs to be heavy enforcement of the no censorship clause.
Right.
That needs to be
enforced. It just seems simple.
I want to see it happen.
I do too, and I think it's been exciting to see the change, the rather swift change of Republican voters over the last 2 years, going from, no, this is my private company, we can't do anything about this, let's keep losing elections, just saying, you know what do we have to lose? This is getting ridiculous. Why are we fighting for people who don't care about us? What are we doing? And it's happened. I've seen the change happen pretty fast. There's still the libertarians out there who just like only care about corporations' rights and don't care about their own rights. But it's rapidly changing, so it makes me excited. Maybe actually Republicans will do something for once, but who knows? Trump's looking into it, so we'll see what happens.
Trump's looking into it. We've got a tech board of people looking into it. So
a tech board. Okay, dude, we already know what's going on. They're censoring conservative speech.
How complicated is the issue? It's like, oh, here's the issue. It's like one of the most simple issues. Like, we know what's going on. Like,
what do you need to know, dude? It's been going on for 5 years.
Take your pen and your phone. This is Trump's pen and his phone opportunity.
Come on.
So are you guys ready to wrap it?
Yeah, sure.
Sweet. All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Free Thinkers Podcast.
Buy some merch.
Oh yeah, buy some merch. Support the Free Thinkers. Next week we got blossoming Free Thinker merch coming out. That's gonna be base. So make sure you guys are ready for
Ryan's face on it. We'll get Rice to his likeness, but blossoming Free Thinker.
I will wear that every
day. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Again, Ryan Fournier, why don't you kind of, for the 9 people watching still, why don't you go ahead and say where people can find you? And
of course, check look up Students for Trump or Ryan Fournier. I'm assuming my name will be on the screen. It's being displayed somewhere. Check us out. Join the movement, trumpstudents.org. Get involved. Get out there. Let's reelect this president.
Let's do it. Let's reelect Trump 2020. And let's make free thinkers not be oppressed, and let's rise up as gamers. You know, I really admired Ryan's passion when it came to video games causing violence.
I'm just saying, I'm so pissed I hear it. I've bit my tongue so many times off that BS. I want to hear it. I'm sick of it.
I like it.
I'm just being real with you. I'm so sick.
That's free thinking right
That's
there.
Free thinking,
Going
dude.
against the grain. I like it.
Yeah. All right, thanks for tuning in. We'll be back Thursday with another episode of the show. Appreciate all of you. See you later.